seen things people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up guys? This is Brian at WhisperStatus74. Welcome to the community, welcome to the channel. If this is the first time you are seeing me, please consider liking and subscribing. We are real tech for real people. It is Monday after Christmas, and I came to do a inside walkthrough at Best Buy. I do these videos, I go in so you don't have to, which I think is even more valuable now the way things are. I hope you had an amazing holiday. Hope Santa was good to you. You got some great presents, some great tech presents. I'd love to hear in the comments what you guys got. I hope everybody is doing well. I was already in the store actually. I was going to film this the day after Christmas, but it was packed. There were lines, mostly returns out the door. So be mindful that there's still lines now to get in. They're just asking you what you're doing in there, but the refund return area is packed. So be mindful if you're going to head out to the stores for that. I do these videos to show you with a visual and a price comparison. I do the audio typically after. I will tell you in there today, what stood out to me is how expensive the 77-inch A9G is, how affordable the Sony 900H at 75 inches. I'll show you that in the video, but I do the narration after, simply because the music ends up getting me hit for copyright. What will be interesting about these videos going forward with these price drops is with CES around the corner and many of you looking towards next year. For those of you looking at value, looking back a year is always most important and always most valuable. What bargains are out there? Something like the A9G does not go down much. It is a master series. Its successor was canceled in 2020. You'll see the successor to that in 2021. But what will be interesting for many of you this year is there were some noticeable features or noticeable displays and companies that didn't embrace HDMI 2.1. You'll see that all embraced, from what I understand. Next year we have all kinds of information that just about every manufacturer will have that to some degree. So will going back to this year be as important to you? Namely, those of you that are looking for a reduced 950H or an AAH or an A9G, will that display be as important to you when their successor does have HDMI 2.1 support? Many of you have also realized with the new consoles that HDMI 2.1 isn't quite as important as many of us thought it would be. So maybe your stance has changed on that. The ZAH is in there, is absolutely gorgeous. And what was interesting about last year was 4K versus 8K, 8K being kind of left to the elite top. You're going to see that change next year as well. And my biggest gripe about the store experience now is not only inventory, the prices are no longer really labeled. You'll see me moving prices around. There wasn't prices on the Q60. There was no Q70. So they're really kind of getting sloppy with that. It's after the holidays, but displays themselves shouldn't change much. And again, it's after the holidays, but and I've mentioned this in many videos, I'll do a separate video on this, the complete lack of TCL, Hisense, and Vizio is always something that I find disturbing. That's not Best Buy's fault. It's on those companies to pay for the real estate and get in these stores, but they're not there in Costco's either, in terms of at least the ones that I have around here. So to me, I'd like to have more TCL, Hisense, and more variety of things to show you price-wise. But we'll see next year. It'll be interesting when you see like NanoCells and TCL having 8K options with HDMI 2.1. Will those attract you? Is 8K something you're actually looking at? I will tell you the ZAH is absolutely stunning. But enough, 5 minutes in, let's go into the store. I want to say hello, love you guys, hope you had a great holiday, and I'll see you in the store. Okay guys, here we are kicking it off with the Samsung 8K 900 TS. Now you'll also see a 950 TS later on in the video. This one is $499 for the 75-inch. It is absolutely gorgeous. The 950 TS, I believe the difference is the one connect box, but I could be wrong on that. This and the Z8H are probably the most impressive new panels in terms of LED. Here's a Sony ZAH. They don't have a price. You'll see me searching for it. It is the same price at $5,000. Both panels in their 90+ inch variant are $15,000, I believe. They're not even available on Best Buy's website. The Z8H is beautiful. I love the Z9G, but the Z8H is as good as it comes. Expect big improvements next year. You should see a successor, but it is a beautiful display. Again, because they're 8K, you're seeing a lot of expense on it. This is the GX. This is the flush. Now, what's interesting about this panel is it is flush. It's not the paper, but it's flush. It's beautiful. You know, still rather expensive, but considering it's 77 inches, that's not a bad price for those of you that wanted mounted flush. Is, you know, the best option, considering that the backs of the CX do not lay flush against the wall. Now we'll jump over here to the AAH at 65 inches. I'll show you the price after, but what's funny, these movable prices here, that's actually a 950H price. So I'll move those around shortly, but the way they have, I mean, these over here, it's interesting, they have these little floating price things, but we'll go around here and you'll see a 75-inch 950H. They don't have one on display, which is interesting considering the 950H is the flagship this year. Probably my favorite LED of the year, $25.99 at 75 inches. We'll come back to this when I go around the store, because I'll show you also the price of the 85-inch. And we'll come back and also show you the price of the AAH when I go back to the OLEDs. Put that there for a second. AAH is gorgeous as well. Here's some random sound bars. I'm not a big sound bar guy. They do have the prices littered all around with the TVs. It can be confusing as some of them are the same price. Now this is the Samsung, the frame. Some of you guys have asked me about this. To me, this is purely an aesthetic panel. You can buy the wooden frames that go around it, which do look very nice. But as far as seeing them reviewed for their picture quality, they're not great from what I've seen reviewed. It is purely an aesthetic thing. You know, they look nice when the frames are on them. Here's a Sony A9G Master Series. Now, the Master Series to me is still the most striking OLED, especially out of the box being a Master Series. It is very expensive. Now, this time last year, at least when the C9 was competing with it, it was about $6,000. It's gone down in price, lower than this, but that's still pretty expensive considering that the CX is almost $1,000 cheaper. But to me, the A9G is the most natural OLED out there. You can see where Sony's design is different than LG's. But the Master Series A9G, still out of the box at 77, there's something very majestic about it. Now here is the Q950TS beside it, AK Samsung. This is 85 inches. The price of this is actually the Q900R above it at 55 inches, which is last year's carryover, as it was the only 55-inch 8K display. I have this TV right now on loan from Value Electronics. I'm having a hard time getting good picture quality out of it, but that's clearly my fault. I'll be covering it more and comparing it to the CX, but that's the price of it now. Still pretty expensive for a display from last year, but it is 8K. A 55-inch 8K I'm not sure is really necessary. And here's the 950TS at 85 inches at 10,000. Really nice TV, but you know, all these displays, just because they're 8K doesn't mean they don't still suffer from dirty screen effect and some of the other issues that other panels have. But Samsung does have very, very impressive demos. The Q90T is also probably right there with the 950H for me as being one of the best LEDs this year. It gets a bad rap because spec-wise, it's a step back from the Q90R, but algorithm-wise, it's a better display and looks really, really nice. Meaning if we didn't know the specs, the Q90T would most likely look better than the Q90R, as it has some improvements, but spec-wise, it's a step back, but still an amazing display. Really, really nice blacks. Looking back at the AK lineup. Now here we are at the AAH. This is the 55-inch at $18.99. We're going to go back and show you the 65-inch at $24.99. Now, the interesting thing here is I pan down to the A9G, again, which is a Master Series. In my opinion, you know, the A9G is typically more expensive, as we're seeing here at $27.99. I would honestly go with the AAH. There are some improvements to the panel, noticeably in motion and shadow detail, that they are subtle improvements, but they are improvements nonetheless. And I wouldn't say spend a great deal more money for the A9G. Even though the A9G is excellent, the AAH kind of gets a bad rap this year. Here is the Sony 900H, probably the best value in the building. At 75 inches, you're looking at $2,000. I will also show you the 85-inch price. It's a substantially different price than the Sony 950H, which I'll show you in a second. The 950H being the flagship, without the HDMI 2.1 capabilities of the 900H, Sony really screwed up this year as far as putting the HDMI 2.1 capabilities on the 900H and not on the flagship. Here you have $14.99 for the 65-inch 950H. And then you also have $37.99 for the 85 and $25.99 for the 75. That's a big difference in price, going back here to the 900H at $19.99, which also has more functionality with the HDMI 2.1, but I still like the 950H quite a bit better in terms of its picture quality. This is the Q60T. Those are the prices. They weren't available. You'll see me searching for them here. It also has a Q90T below it. The way Samsung has this lineup mixed and matched here, Q70 is mixing, but you do have the Q800, which is off here. Q800 is also relatively inexpensive for a 75-inch 8K display, which to me is the starting point for 8K TVs, for me anyway. That's the Q60. Again, that's off. To me, the Q90 is where I would probably stop, maybe Q80T this year. That's the Q800T, again, at 65 inches. And here is the smaller Q80T underneath it. Q80T, to me, looks good in store, but no in Samsung's lineup. They always seem to match, closer with last year's step back. So the Q80 lines up more with last year's Q70 and so on and so forth. It's very confusing, and it's very, very tough on people that are buying them. I will say Samsung this year does offer a lot of different sizes on a lot of these panels. Some really random sizes. I commend them for that. Now we're looking at the Nano Cell here. I really want to like the Nano Cell. This is the 9 series. I really want to like them because they are affordable. They do offer HDMI 2.1 functionality. You get a lot of the gaming features of the CX, but at a fraction of the price. The challenge with them is that the IPS panels, though they offer better off-viewing angles, their blacks really struggle. This one looks pretty good in store. I do want to get my hands on the AK one. They do have it at Value Electronics. But a lot of people grab the Nano Cell. It's probably the one panel I do struggle with. Here we are looking at the 8 series. They just really struggle with blooming and really gray blacks. What's interesting, I see a lot of people that have YouTube channels that do gaming videos on the Nano Cell. They look fantastic. Digital Foundry did a good one. It's just that they really struggle with the blacks, and that contrast ratio is really so important. But you can see how highlighted the gray is there. I really want to like them. I really do. The better, the better LEDs. I'd love to have an LG LED that just competes there. Now moving over to the LG CX. This is the 77-inch. This is the one that I have at home. You really can't beat the money. $34.99 for a 77-inch panel. It's just that the CX, me having it, I think it's still the best all-around display this year as far as price and specs. We know mine definitely have some flaws. There are some raised blacks out there. There are some issues, but hopefully they're sorting them out. Mine's getting switched out. Now here we're looking at the 65-inch. This is actually the GX. Again, they have the panels all over the place. And if you look up here, that's the CX price for the 65-inch. Not a lot of difference between prices for them, but here's the BX above it with no price, and it's off. Here are the prices for the BX. The challenge with the BX is I'm not really sure who it's for, as it's priced so closely with the CX. That price should be lower, and we'll see what happens next year with the B1. And they're supposed to be offering a 77-inch. Now here's the 85-inch Sony 900H at $25.99. I do like it at 85 inches. For some reason, the 900H just looks better larger, probably compared to last year's or the year before's 800 series, where local dimming was literally non-existent, and those panels really struggled with blooming. And again, they have AAHs here and a 950H just all mixed together. And as you can see, those price things make it very confusing for people. It's confusing for me, and I know these panels very well. So a little lazy on their part. And as we we look over at the Vizio here on the right. I'm going to spend very little time on this. They have almost no footprint here. I mean, that's on, Vizio to put their products here. No Quantum P Series, no P Series X, no OLEDs. Just don't like that they're not there. And I want to help these brands, but they can't help themselves. Same with TCL and Hisense. They should be in store here, but they're not. There's a last look there at the, the higher end area and some 4K Blu-rays. But the store is a bit of a mess. It is after the holidays. I will see you guys soon. Love you guys. Take care.